we're back, people, and today we're bringing up film on the Miami Dolphins versus the Buffalo Bills for a game preview here. Sort of what went wrong last time, and I think how to fix it, and why I think things will be different. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be better, but I do think the game will play out differently. There's a lot of things that happened in the first game that I think are either very preventable, or the Dolphins are just doing differently at this point in the year. One, the turnovers. They got quite unlucky in the turnover category. I think they were all very fixable turnovers. None of them were like the ones where like the defense disguised the coverage, you made a poor read, interception or something like that, or they made a good punch out. It was ball hitting off a back of receiver's chest, slight slip down, a little miss, but then and then one where you were trying to throw it away, it didn't get out of bounds and it was picked off. Those things, I think the running game is quite different at this point in the season. With what Dolphins are still running a lot of crack toss versus the Bills, and they'll have some success with crack toss, but there's also too many negatives. And now Dolphins are getting a little more downhill. They were still running outside zone and all that, but I think that will help the Dolphins running game. I think that's probably where they'll be most successful in this game, is running the football versus Buffalo. Now can they stick with that? Keep the game close. Obviously, you're still favoring Buffalo. The Dolphins have always struggled against Buffalo, especially in Buffalo. But I think if you keep the game close, you always give yourself at least a chance. Like, it's not like this game's a 0% chance of winning. It is low, but there are ways to win. And then defensively, I think the Dolphins really struggled to stop the run in this game. Dolphins are stopping the run a little bit better at this point. They are also doing things differently schematically. I think the biggest difference is the Dolphins are blitzing much more than they did in this Buffalo game. When Josh Allen did drop back, they didn't really get pressure on him. So, I think more blitzes, more stunts, being able to force Josh Allen to play hero ball. I mean, it's not necessarily the greatest idea because Josh Allen can also beat you with hero ball. But to me, whether Josh Allen's playing the hero ball or not, they're going to score points. I think the way to stop them is, you force him to play hero ball, and then hopefully, the demon in his head takes over to force a turnover, because he hasn't really been turnover heavy. But I think if you blitz a lot, you can put him in a position where he's kind of, more has to win the game for his team. And it's not like they have the greatest weapons out there. Their weapons are definitely playing better at this point, though. That's a big difference. They also have Amari Cooper, who might not play. So we'll see how that works out. I think the biggest thing is being able to run on offense and then stopping the run on defense. They did not stop the run well versus Buffalo at all. It's probably their worst games stopping the run. But also the defense was put in a very difficult spot on most drives. I think all of their touchdowns, all of their points except one touchdown drive, came off of good field position. So that will be potentially different. The one time they were actually able to get some pressure on Josh is when they got a quick stunt on him. It forced him to get rid of the ball very quickly, and it was, an incompletion. So that's kind of what you're trying to do. The Dolphins are struggling to get pressure right now with all the edge injuries they have. They've only been getting pressure with blitzes. So hopefully they can get after Josh Allen a little better than they did Kyler Murray last week, because that's kind of a big difference. And then just playing, more simple football will break this all down. So first play, the crack tosses. They had a couple successful runs doing this, but there's too many runs that just went for negative plays. They clearly know when it's coming. When they see these guys aligned, in more of a nasty split, they shoot up field. These guys are setting the edge, and it just gives your running backs less options, because on these plays they have to capture the edge. Also puts a lot of stress on your offensive line. But on outside zone, you can still capture the edge, but it also gives the running back the ability to, bang it up the middle or find a cutback lane. On these crack tosses, there's less options for that. And I think the Dolphins found much more success when they were able to run the ball downhill. And even sometimes they did that versus the Bills. They had some big runs. It was just too late because they went down way too early. So they got to keep this game close. Also, the last few times they played the Bills, they've tried to do this where they go play action and try to hit the ball deep. But the Bills bail out in their secondary and play over the top more than any other team the Dolphins face. They're going to put a cap on things. They need to stop taking super deep shots. It's fine to have Tyreek and Waddle running vertically and going deep, but they should not be a lot of primary reads unless you actually see you get one-on-one and they're pressed up on them. These guys are trying to stay over the top, so that's something the Bills do a lot of. The Dolphins just need more easy options. It's always a check down to Achane, but I feel we need more easy options over the middle of the field as well. But I think schematically that can change. Look, Jonnu and Ingold are kind of running into each other here. That ball should have been checked down. Waddle's taken away over the middle. But, I mean, they were checking it down later on, but they're doing this a lot where they play over the top. And it's not even where their corner bill is. They'll have their safeties play super deep. And then here was like the first interception. I think this is less likely to happen where the receivers are causing interception. It hasn't been a big thing for them now. Since this game, they've had, more experienced receivers in there. Tyreek and Waddle are rotating out less and less. So, like, first drive for a ball to hit receiver down the field like this, anticipation, you got to have guys you're trustworthy with. So, hopefully having, like Odell, Malik Washington, even like D. Eskridge in this will be more helpful out for your team. Then defensively, this is like the first touchdown they gave up. They did a good job targeting David Long in man-to-man coverage. They motioned around, shifted pre-snap, knew that it was man-to-man, saw David Long was in man-to-man, and then they run like this mesh where he has to fall into people, and it just gets James Cook a free walk-in touchdown. That's just getting out-coached there. People are going to target David Long, especially after last week. He's your weakness point in coverage. He's not going to be able to play man-to-man. He can obviously, he's been struggling versus the run this season too, but has shown that he's capable of stopping the run. It's just, that's how you get beaten right there. And James Cook was a huge problem last time they ended up playing. But I think just sort of the downhill runs, you can see a lot of the effect the motion and all the movement has on the linebackers. Like, Bills have some good linebacker play, but I feel like they're also ready for like things to get to the outside, that them attacking down the middle like this puts them in a tough spot, and like you just get Achane working, pick up like nice 8 yards on the play. Wright had a long run there too. Will be interesting. I also think going empty is potential for some good or bad things to happen. Going empty like this puts more pressure on your offensive line to block because they have to do true pass sets, but I think they've been blocking better. But I also think it just makes life easier on the receiver and the quarterback. Like if you do get a little time, Tua is able to step up and then find Waddle over the middle. I think you're able to run more basic concepts, and the Bills are always really sold out to stop a lot of the other stuff that you do. So I think that's some potential there. I hope they do more of that. They had some success with the Cardinals game too. Here's the second interception, also preventable. Like you have a backup receiver, and again, he slips. He also probably doesn't get exactly where he needs to be. And then Tua, I think, also didn't have his best mechanics in the pocket here, and I think he slightly overthrew him anyways, whether he was in the right spot or not. Like this one, I think can go blame on both. But those are just turnovers and interceptions that I think that are kind of not usually the ones Tua has. It's more so if he like makes a poor read and poor decision. That one is just he missed him, and the receiver slipped and fell down, which Tua is not one to really miss with accuracy. He's a very accurate quarterback, if not one of the most accurate in the NFL. So that's not something I'm super worried about happening again. He can still throw interceptions, but I think they would be in different ways, unless your receivers mess up again. But just like all day, Josh Allen had all day. They only bring 3 here. The Dolphins are not really doing this anymore. They're going to bring pressure. This is just looks I wanted to show. And it just gets David Long as the Mike linebacker in Tampa 2 gets isolated on Khalil Shakur. That's a mismatch. To me, that's just not what the Dolphins are really attempting to do anymore. They have injuries. They have no Zach Sealer, no Kidder Kohu, no Holland. So they're in a tough spot. It obviously would be very difficult for the Dolphins to win this game, but I actually think this game will be closer. I also wouldn't be surprised if maybe the Bills aren't taking the Dolphins as seriously, but who knows? They probably will still put the pedal to the metal. But I think there's still options. Also, Jonnu Smith got involved in this game. I think they're still going to try to do this stuff, the screens, little shovel pass there, get him the ball, allow him to work after the catch. I think that was something they did pretty well. But here's just another example of Josh Allen having a super clean pocket. They only bring 4, gets blocked up. Josh Allen goes from 1 to 2 to 3 to finding, this hitter over the middle, and then Shakir makes a nice catch. They absolutely ate the middle of the field. I do think with no Kohu, I'm imagining Ramsey's going to be playing in the slot. So Ramsey playing the slot should allow you some more success there a lot. And then Cam Smith will be playing on the outside, so it'll be interesting to see how the Bills kind of attack that differently. But these types of things. Josh Allen, sometimes he didn't even need to really get out of the pocket here, but he does. He had plenty of time still. But here he is kind of playing hero ball, and then Ramsey and Holland have a miscommunication, and he could still have big plays off of it. Because the Dolphins were in cover 2 here. But sometimes when QB's like, Holland still needs to stay over the top, I think. But he gets downhill because he sees him break the pocket. But also Ramsey, like when it turns into scramble drill, it has to become man-to-man, and he has to stick with this guy, and he just falls off balance. And like that's a running back. And that's not something like this play exactly I don't really see happening again, where a running back, breaks down the field for a 40-yard gain on Ramsey, and, Holland's not even playing. So those are the types of things I don't necessarily see happening. I mean, it could happen easily with the receiver, but like there were some of these lanes, man, where they showed these runs, like this motion, like look how just this step from angle right here, pre-snap, just across, and then they snap it. Look what the effect it has on these players. It moves them out of the way, and then it just gets these people perfect angles, and it just gets H-hand. Like, that's where the game needs to be. I understood last week throwing the ball a lot, because the Cardinals were, and they ran the ball well, but they also threw the ball pretty consistently. I think keeping the passing game simple is smart, and then really relying on the running game, because I think when the things are more third and manageable, even if the running game doesn't work every snap, if you get a 3rd and 5, you feel much more confident in converting that than the 3rd and 13s they were getting in this game, because of, But here's an example of where the empty doesn't work. They go empty, and then Robert Jones, who is playing better at this point in the season, so that could be better, but he gets just destroyed here and loses instantly. Also, the problem is Waddle slips. That was a big problem in this game, too. The field was slippery like crazy, and it feels like slippery fields hurt the Dolphins more than most teams because of how explosive their receivers are. If they're slipping, it just hurts them, and that was a big turnover on 4th down. And then here was the big run in the game. David Long, the Bills are going to come out in these looks, so 6 offensive linemen and a tight end. Also, look at their splits on the backside. Very interesting how they like to do this. But this becomes a number of games. I don't think the Dolphins are aligned properly here pre-snap. I feel like they have too many guys to the weak side. Like, they already have enough to fill these gaps. And then David Long makes the bad decision here. He's put in a tough spot, but they triple team Hand. And now Long is trying to read this. Do we scrape here? But the problem is, I don't think Long knows Fuller is going to help him to fill that gap, and he just takes himself out of position, and then Cook hits up a long one, and then Poyer has no speed on the back end to take an angle there to prevent that from a touchdown. But yeah, as I was talking about, here's the one time they were able to get some pressure on him with a quick stunt. Blitz's stunts, I think, are the key to potentially stopping this game. And then as I was saying, you can still have Waddle and Tiger run down the field, but look how deep their safeties are. DeMar Hamlin's so deep, he's off the screen here for multiple seconds, which is kind of crazy in all 22. He could have potentially thrown this one to Waddle, really, if he threw it with anticipation, but it would have been a tough one because there is a safety over the top here. But this is one of the decisions where it is good to take, you see how much depth they get, dump it down to H-hand, and he picks up a nice 10 to 12, gets 13, 14 yards on the play, which is exactly what you want. If they're going to, run down the field, take those quick checkdowns and make life easier for the next down. But then you have a rep like this, which was unfortunate because it was the first play Lamb came in the game and Cotton was in the game. So no Armstead, no Jones. Your 2 backup offensive linemen. They get a quick pressure on you. Tua wants to throw it away, and he just didn't have the arm strength to get it there, and then it just becomes a pick 6. So at this point of the game was kind of over, but this really put the nail in the coffin. So hopefully these types of plays don't happen. They are very, very preventable. But you still they could still push the ball down the field. These guys were getting so much depth. This is 3rd and 5, and look where their safeties are. They're 20 plus down the field, and they were still able to complete a glance route to Waddle to gain 20 yards on the play. That's insane. You could still take your shots if you get one-on-one like this. You got to get open. And it was one time Waddle was actually able to get open. Even and Jackson loses instantly, and they were still able to complete a play like that down the field. So you're hoping that can happen. And also they had some missed touchdowns. This one to Julian Hill. Ball is it's a tough catch for sure. I think he could have put it slightly better, but I think he wanted to put it over the linebacker. He put it probably a little higher than he needed to, and then it's a tough catch for Julian Hill, who's also not playing in this game. Yeah, across the board, I think a lot of the Dolphins' problems in this first game are all very fixable, preventable. Doesn't mean the Bills still won't have success. It'll be a very tough game for the Dolphins to win. They've been struggling. But I think that with the things they're doing differently, it does give you a little bit of hope for the game to be better, in my opinion, just because of, I think McDaniel's calling plays better at this point in the season. Even though they've still been struggling, I think he's just calling plays more consistently. I think this Bills game was not a good game for him. They're calling less screens, too, doing less of that, where the Bills were stopping that stuff. It's more downhill running game. They'll still run some creative screens, but it's less common, and so it makes it less predictable. Less crack tosses. Hopefully, less turnovers. That's not something you can really predict, but I think with how the turnovers were in the first game, I think it could be very easy, less turnovers. And then the things they're doing defensively, I think the Bills' offense will still have success, but I think you could put more pressure with blitzes on Josh Allen to potentially make an impact in this game, because Josh Allen didn't need to do really anything in the first game. like he played a really like Josh Allen played fine and made a couple of big time throws, but like other than that, like he didn't even need to make those throws, and they still would have won this game pretty easily, which is the tough thing. It's kind of crazy. It's probably the least impactful Josh Allen's ever been in a Dolphins game because usually he wins those games by himself. But this game they didn't need him, so that will be kind of the spot you want to force him to play a little bit of hero ball, and hopefully you get a lucky turnover or something. So if you guys really the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and